Baseball has been a part of my life since I could remember. I was always fascinated by everything involved with it. So much rich history. My dad, who's a diehard Red Sox fan, once told me that when he was able to be relocated for work before and after I was born, that he would talk to my mom about moving to an American League team city in order to see the Red Sox anytime he could. That's dedication. But that's just a diehard baseball fan in general. It's become so much part of the Fanatic's everyday lives that it's just second nature. I've rooted for many different teams, and you could argue that I should have been a Red Sox fan since everything I knew about baseball was about them. It runs in the family. Though I never really got why my dad rooted for the Red Sox since they lost all this time, but still stuck with them. But then I realized that no matter how many losing seasons, there's this bond between a team and its fans that can't be explained. Baseball is like family. Even when things couldn't get any worse, a fan will still be there for his or her team, and when things aren't going well in your life, they're always there to bring your spirits up. In 1966, my family moved from Detroit, Michigan, where I was kind of a quasi-Tigers fan, but really didn't care that much about them, to Stamford, Connecticut. And I had a bunch of buddies of mine in fourth grade that were all Yankee fans because of the fact that Stamford, Connecticut is so close to Metro New York. And I said, you guys got to be kidding me. You have to root for New England's baseball team, not the New York baseball teams. And of course, I was in the minority. Little did I realize in the beginning of the baseball season that the Red Sox, who were in last place at Memorial Day before divisional play, would climb all the way to the top of the American League. The very next year in '67 was the year that Carl Yastrzemski won the Triple Crown. We wound up going 7 games. We wound up losing it to the Cardinals, but the fact it was one of the most exciting World Series I ever seen, and from that point forward, I was hooked. One of the things that I've started to do over all the years that I've been a baseball fan is I've tried to make it to every one of the stadiums in Major League Baseball. And although I haven't made it to some of the newer ones, if you characterize either an older stadium or a newer stadium but in the team's town, I've actually been to 29 out of the 30. The only one that I'm missing is Seattle. What I have to find in here for you is my ALCS ticket, because that particular ticket is absolutely my pride and joy. Even up in New England, where the Patriots have won 3 Super Bowls and been in 5 Super Bowls, it's really a baseball town, and that's why people refer to it as being baseball is like a religion, because they get really sober, they get really emotional, and they get really serious when it starts to come to having discussions about the Red Sox, because that team means everything to those people in that region. What I love it is, and here's another headline, they did it for the old folks in Presque Isle, Maine. In White River Junction, Vermont, they did it for the baby boomers in North Conway, New Hampshire, and Groton, Mass. They did it for all the kids in Central Falls, Rhode Island, and Putnam, Connecticut. While church bells rang in small New England towns and horns honked in the crowded streets of the hub, the 2004 Boston Red Sox last night won the 100th World Series, completing a 4-game sweep of the St. Louis Cardinals with a 3-0 victory on the stretch of 7 innings of 3-hit pitching by Derek Lowe. So anyway, it goes on, but I mean, it gives you a sense for what the fans are, how much the team means to them. I would say, though, in 2004, it was probably the most exciting time in my entire life from a sports standpoint. Somebody asked me one time, at that time the Patriots had 2 Super Bowl wins, and somebody asked me one time, they said, would you give up the Vince Lombardi trophy for a World Series ring? And I said I'd give them both up in a heartbeat, because the Red Sox mean that much to, not only me, but to other fans. I actually had a couple of baseballs that were given to me by my friend Bruce Fremming, who was a National League umpire at the time, and I thought it was kind of cool because I wasn't really into baseball cards. It was pretty cool to be able to collect things that were very hard to get, because if they're not hard to get, there's no point in trying to collect them. So they all kind of found themselves to me. Well, then I wound up starting to go with my company, with Miller Brewing Company, to the All-Star Game several years in a row, and I learned rather quickly. But the cool thing about the All-Star Game is you always know what town it's going to be in well in advance. You also know, they know they can plan accordingly, to be able to go to the event. So having said that, I carry a lot of baseballs in my pockets, and I hit a lot of the more popular bars. And, a case in point is Henry Aaron. I had the opportunity to be able to meet Henry Aaron. I was in Bambino's Bar at Camden Yards in 1993. I met he and Boog Powell there. And I happened to ran into him, and I was shocked. I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Aaron, do you mind if I get an autograph?" And I whipped the ball out of my pocket. He said, "Sure, no problem." He gave it to me, and I was happy as a clam. And then the other one that I got while I was there was Pete Rose. Let me get a beer over here while I pause for a minute to look at the memorial that I set up from the back page of the Daily News the next morning in Manhattan. And I always recite that headline at the bottom: worst postseason collapse in baseball history. Bronx Nightmare sends Sox to series. It gets me choked up even just thinking about it. I think that, well, it seems to be that the Yankees are always the foil for the Red Sox. Anytime we've ever had heartbreak, well, in the case of '86, it was a New York team, but it always seems to be New York. And I think some of it, I mean, people talk about the curse of the Bambino and the whole thing about Babe Ruth, and like the Red Sox fans had something to do with it. It was Frazee, the owner of the Red Sox at the time, the dope went and needed the money for No Nanette, and he winds up selling Babe Ruth for basically sold the soul of the devil is what he did. That dopey looking character with a Mets hat on. Normally he's a pretty good looking guy, but because he's got a Mets hat on, he's now dopey looking. But anyway, that's Ken Effler. Ironically, our very good friends, the Efflers, live in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, in Sox country, yet he's a Mets fan because he grew up in Long Island. But anyway, we used to live in Memphis, Tennessee, and Ken, somehow or another, we got talking about baseball, and he talked about what a raving Mets fan he was and how I'm a Red Sox fan. One thing leads to another, and I said, "I got 4 tickets to the World Series at Fenway. Do you want to go?" And he said, "Are you kidding me?" Ken was like the only Mets fan in the entire group, which is why he's pointing up at his hat. But the great thing about it was we were riding him all the way. He and I just sat there staring at each other. I had my Sox hat on, and he had his Mets hat on. We were across the aisle from each other in the plane going all the way up, just trading barbs back and forth about who was going to win. There it is. Took me a while. Anyway, Game 4 is the 4th game that he played at Yankee Stadium, which was Game 7 of the ALCS. So I was actually in attendance. It was a thrill of my life. And I was actually there with customers, and customers were saying to me, "Geez, can't you be gracious?" And I said, "Not at all." I said, "I've hated the Yankees my entire life. Sucks to be you. We're going to the show, and you're playing golf tomorrow." It was great. I loved it.